Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about 10 things you're doing wrong in game design. I have some ideas, but I'm joined by James, who helped make Need for Speed Rivals, and we're going to be talking about 10 things that you shouldn't do when you're designing your game. I had one idea, I'll just start it off here. You're making your game too hard. What do you think of that one, Valcola? Or James, I should say.
Yeah, it's really easy to make your game too hard. You work on it every day. You see it through your eyes, and it gets easier and easier to you. So playtest your games, get more people to see it and tell you what's going on, and take their feedback seriously.
And what do you see as the number one thing that people are doing wrong when they're designing their games?
The first thing, though, is making a game just for yourself, making a game that you don't know if anyone else wants, and not knowing what they do want. Who are you making this game for? What are they looking for? What else is going on in their lives and their fields, so that they can say, oh yeah, this is exciting and new, not just, I think this is a cool game. You end up with a game that one person wants to play, you. And ultimately, you hopefully want your game to get played by lots and lots of people. So knowing who your audience is really important.
I feel that getting into the emotion of who your target audience is really important. You know, getting that feeling, getting with their likes and their preferences, and really embodying those kind of people. I feel like is a great starting point. Like, you know me, I love marketing, and that's kind of my thing. And I feel like that's a great starting point for these kind of things. What do you think?
Yeah, so bigger studios tend to do a lot of research ahead of time, build up who their audience is, do lots of reporting and figuring out where their market opportunities are. But I think on the smaller side, when you're doing indie development, it's just something that people kind of forget to do. And they have to take those steps of, even if you're not going to be able to go and do huge amounts of reports and research and digging in, you can look at what's going on out there. If you're planning on making a certain type of game, find out what other people playing those games also play. Look at any sort of resources you can to figure out what's going on with these people. What do they like? What do they dislike?
Definitely. So start from the perspective of somebody who wants to play. Start from the perspective of the customer, and then move toward how to make that fun, and really digging into that, I feel like, is a great starting point. Now, the next one I had, and I'd love your thoughts on this one, is you're not giving people a reason to care. I feel like a lot of people, they really care about their idea, and they're really passionate about it, and I think you drilled this home with us too, is like, give me a reason that I should engage with this. Like, give me a reason that I should care about this, and I feel that's important. What do you think?
Yeah, so this is usually wrapped up in a term called unique selling point, a USP.
Gotcha.
Your game has to bring something, right? It has to bring something that you can't get elsewhere. Otherwise, you're not even going to get people into your game in the first place. You might get the odd person, or maybe if you're giving your game away for free, that'll come in and check it out. But they won't want to stick around long term because they've seen all of these things in other places. And so whenever you play an exciting new game, chances are there's something in there. It's like, oh, I understand, but it's different, and I want to explore that. And I can start to imagine there's a lot of possibilities here. I want to explore what those possibilities are. Most of those possibilities under the hood don't exist. They're all smoke and mirrors, and it's all something that is in the player's head. But creating that excitement around, ooh, I could do all these things, or I could explore and figure out this stuff, or I could create a super powerful character in a way I've never done before. That's what gets players excited. That's why they're playing these games. If you're just carbon copying someone else's game, it's a good technical exercise, I suppose, but you're not going to get people excited and people sticking into your game long term.
Couldn't agree more. And I really feel like that's been a discovery for us, is like we're competing technically against all these AAA studios for people's time. Even if your game is free, people have to spend their time doing it. And why would they spend time with what we're doing unless we make something unique and totally out of the box, something that really takes them away from just the generic experience to something that they can't get with these other games? That's how we feel about it, at least.
Yeah, and you can see this happening a lot in the industry. There'll be some breakout hit. So you can look at PUBG, the Battlegrounds, right? Battle Royale games suddenly became really big on the back of PUBG, so everyone else was starting to make Battle Royale games, but they just made Battle Royale games. They didn't do something with it. And so you can see a lot of like hit and misses, both small and large, where they tried to do something, but they didn't offer a reason to go and do it. They didn't offer like, well, if you're a big PUBG fan, why would you stop playing that and go here? Yeah. And then Fortnite came along and was like, aha, we're going to give you something new. And building was the core mechanic that started to pull a lot of people into their version of a battle royale. Yeah. You could build and construct and actually harvest from the environment. It wasn't just running around and picking up random loot. And that's what I mean, like giving players an evolution or a step or something new that draws them in. That's
Definitely.
how you catch people's excitement and catch their minds.
Definitely. So give people a reason to care. I love to talk about this one. You drilled it in our heads. 90% of making games these days is marketing. When I say that nowadays, people don't believe me. I love marketing myself, but give people a reason to care was my last point, and I think give people a reason to share is another point here. That baking in, thinking about how people will share your game and how they'll share that experience with other people. I feel like is these days really important with game design too.
Yeah. It took me a while to come around to that one myself. I'm an old school gamer. I want to like fire up a game, sit on the couch, and not deal with anyone else and not think about the outside world. But we live in a world where Twitch is the thing, right?
Yeah.
You want to get out there and have experiences, even if it's just you and a few friends and they're watching your game and they can interact with you and have a few button presses. They can vote on a thing or cause a thing to happen in your game. Then it's exciting and cool. But even just the core experience of, is my game watchable? Do other people want to check this out and watch it? And you can see some games have succeeded really well in doing so, despite the fact that on the face of it, they shouldn't. Like Escape from Tarkov is a great example of, this is a game that is a hardcore, extremely niche shooter game.
Yeah.
And I would say it's probably more watchable than it is playable. It's very playable, but
interesting.
For a very specific audience. But watching it is very tense. And they've done a good job in making it interesting and exciting to watch. And also it's not watching a game so much as watching an experience, because they've done extremely minimalist UIs. It's all about being in the world. It's very diegetic. You feel like you can watch it more like a movie, and you can be interested in being a viewer rather than a player. Other games, they don't have to be viewable like that, but it helps a lot, because that's what gets new people into your game over time, and it keeps a long, live, and like vibrant community. Otherwise, you launch your game, hopefully you sell well, and that's the end, right?
Definitely.
You need to have ways for new people to spot your game and see it, and hopefully even come and pick up your game and play it themselves.
Definitely. And the next thing I think about that I see a lot of people do is that they make their game, but they never test their game. They never put it before people. And I feel like you can, you're the expert here, but I feel like starting from the perspective of pitching your game idea is even a way of getting testing even before you're going. Let's just see if anybody's interested in the idea to start, and then as you build more, testing that along the way and seeing if anybody cares,
Yeah. It's really easy to just, especially on indie teams or it's a few people and you're very insulated.
Yeah.
It's very easy just to get heads down and you're making the thing. But it is important as early as possible to get people to come in and play it and give you feedback on, I don't understand what the hell's going on. Tell me how to play this game. Like, there's so many things about your game that you know and take for granted that you wouldn't have thought, oh, I have to teach the player about this, or oh, I have to instruct them, or I have to signal them, or I have to give them feedback. And the more often you get people coming in and having bad experiences with your game, the earlier that happens, the better your game gets and the quicker that happens. If you wait until, all right, I'm going to ship this game in 6 months, and then that's when I start getting all this feedback and impressions from people, you're setting yourself up to fail. Definitely. Bigger teams, they'll have a QA department, like professional teams, and that helps a lot. But ultimately, we still need to come in and get people off the street, fresh eyes play tests, average everyday users, not game developers, to come in and really say, yeah, you guys, you aren't telling me how to play this game, and it's frustrating, and everyone stops playing at level 2 because they don't get how to do the thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
All we had to do was put a sign up or give them the right weapon, or there's not enough health. But we as developers play our game so much that we know, or just kind of get blind to the issues that are present for a new player.
Definitely. I want to show the viewers something. Let me see if I can get this here correctly. On the right side, I want to show them something that you taught us about giving the players a sense of motivation, having a clear goal. You've taught us this, you've drilled it in, that rather than just having an idea, you've got to have a clear goal. But I've got to give some context. So viewers, you're watching a really early prototype of one of our games, and you start basically on this island, right? And one of the things that you mentioned to us, James, is that what we have to do is start them off with a cutscene that shows them something they need to do, some place they need to go. You gave us an example of Zelda, and you know, maybe there would be a special weapon on this island, and that would give people a reason to care. But giving them a reason to not only to care, but giving them a clear goal and giving them the idea of what they need to do some way visually is always a great way to get started. Is definitely something we've learned from you.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a term that usually gets batted around, which is a lot of signs and feedback. And so this is signaling. This is the upfront, giving you a sign, pointing you where to go.
Yeah.
And then hopefully, if you're doing the right thing as a player, you're being given positive feedback, which is saying, yeah, good, you're getting coins popping up into your pocket, or you're getting more power to your weapon, or your experience is growing because you're doing the things that the designer wants. Conversely, there can be negative feedback in there, right? If your first island, in this case, it's all surrounded by nothing, you walk off the edge, you're going to fall off and die. That's negative feedback, but it tells you, oh, that's not the right way to do it. So yeah, those signals are really important so that players get the sense of this is what the designer is expecting. And that's really how you have a conversation as a designer with your audience, is those signals and then ultimately the feedback that you provide to them.
Definitely. I'd love to invite you to throw in one more thing that you see that game developers, or game designers, I should say, do really wrong when designing a game. What's a classic mistake?
Oh, there's game designers, especially more junior game designers, tend to get this sense of like, it has to be perfect, right? And the plan has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't implement anything until I've figured it all out on paper and I've just made it work perfectly, and then I'll start implementing it. That is well-meaning, but it's ultimately self-destructive. And this isn't an indie development problem. It happens all the way up into AAA, where it's like we need a perfect plan before we act because it's expensive and time-consuming to act.
Definitely.
What's really important is you spend enough time figuring out what your goal is and then understanding what the basics of your plan might be so that you can take action, get it in software, and start playing it. Because the best laid plan on paper is going to just fall apart as soon as you actually start playing and implementing it. You're going to realize all of these new things. You're going to realize the ideas you had, they don't quite work right. You're going to have to implement new features to help support them, maybe cut certain things, and iterate and iterate and iterate and iterate. You're going to have to balance and test and tune and change until it actually hits the goal you're shooting for. But having that goal early, rather than a huge elaborate plan, gets you into software, gets you working towards your goal in a way that creates a game. If you get stuck on that plan, and I've seen this a lot in forums where everyone's like, I need to write a whole GDD. No, you don't need to write a whole GDD.
Every time.
Those are important for some projects in some cases, but especially in smaller teams, you probably don't. And the less documentation you can write, the better, because that's not going to actually make your software, and you have fewer people to communicate with.
Yeah.
If you have a team of 50 or 100, the kind of teams I tend to work on, yeah, okay, documentation becomes more important because there's going to need to be a lot of people understanding the same thing over a longer period of time, all the way from initial implementation all the way out to alpha testing and QAs verifying that the feature works as planned. Well, they need a plan first, so you have to do more documentation. But don't get stuck on documentation. Don't get stuck on perfection. Great is the enemy of good. Don't worry about your first implementation being great. Just get it going. Get something running. Get something good enough that you can iterate and learn from it, because you're going to teach yourself what's wrong with your game really quickly once the software's up and running.
Couldn't agree more. And guys, I hope you guys enjoyed that video an absolute ton. If you're looking to join a community where you can grow your design skills, and if you want to have a place to experiment, to connect with others, to benefit from the idea of working with a lot of other people that are passionate about communicating as they go, and not just one or two people solo, but a lot of people with a lot of different mentors and a lot of people that have years of experience that love to teach and care, you could join us in the Discord in the top up there and be part. I'm going to leave the next video in the middle of the screen now. The next video is going to be about should you get a game design degree. I'll leave it there in the middle of the screen for 10 seconds for you guys to enjoy.